Greetings, everyone. This is Trojan. I just wanted to do a quick video here, kind of giving a basic synopsis on getting connected to online Tecmo, but you could certainly do this for any NES game that you and a friend want to play. If you're not in the Tecmo Super Bowl Discord, you're going to want to get there. That's where you're going to find players for this. And if you do a Google search on Discord, Tecmo Super Bowl, you'll find that link and be able to get right in there. But for now, just want to focus on getting the files that you need, getting your router configured to be able to host games. So first thing you want to do, if you go to tecmobowl.org, and by the way, you do need an account for this. There's me, Trojan1979. You're going to want to grab the latest version of Nestopia. If you're getting any other instructions while you get into Discord, as far as this file could change at any time. So if there's any updates, you may or may not need to make a change to which emulator you're doing. For now, grab this from tecmobowl.org. Again, if you don't have an account, you'll need to create one, but then you'll be able to download this file. Once you have that downloaded, you'll be able to start configuring it. But before we do that, we definitely want to get into the router so we can make configuration changes. So if you go to, again, I went to start here, search bar. If you're Windows 7, you'll want to go start and then run, but type CMD, brings up your command prompt. Here it is. Type ipconfig. You're going to want to, if you get a lot of information, you can scroll down, but you're looking for this, the default gateway. That should be the IP address for your router. If you have routers daisy-chained to get wireless other places, you may have multiple networks. This process will not work for hosting games if you have it set up that way. Ideally, you should be wired in for the best connection experience for Tecmo Super Bowl, wired directly into your main router, whether that's from your ISP or that's Internet Service Provider, or if you have your own router behind it, as long as they're not both handing out these private addresses. But get into your gateway. I already have the address in there, but you want to type it in your web address. You do need the password for the device, so when you set it up, or you might be set it as a default password, look at the manufacturer's website for that information. A lot of times it's actually printed right on the device itself if you look underneath it or on the side. So I'm going to go ahead and key in my password here. Two things you want to do. One, you want to set up what's called a DHCP reservation. In English, that means you don't have to configure your own device to be static. The router does that for you. So you leave your computer in an automatic DHCP mode, and the router gives you an automatic address. You can see here's my outside IP right here. You can also get that from going to ipchicken.com. You'll need that later. If you go into the advanced settings, now each router's interface is a little different, but what you want to do is get into like the forwarding, look for things like port forwarding, port triggering. I had to add a port trigger for port 6996. This was the emulator port that I use for hosting games for Nestopia, which is the emulator. And then also, so again, the language may differ in your router. This one's called virtual servers. I actually had to set up to forward to my actual internal IP. So as you'll notice under here, it says my address is 191. So I made this address never change in the router by going into what's called the DHCP reservation. You'll have to find that in your own configuration, but you'll create a DHCP reservation so that this number does not change for that computer, and then all 6996 port requests go to it. Once you have that configured, you're now able to host games, and here's how you do that in the emulator itself. So I'm just going to minimize this. We're going to open up the emulator, which I've already downloaded. If for the first time, if you haven't done anything in the emulator, you need to also download a ROM file, and you need to know where that's stored on the computer. For me, you'll see that come up later. Go into options here. You want to set up your controller. I've got two controllers connected. This is the one I want to use. And then you can hit set all and bind your buttons. If you have someone over locally and you want to set a pad to, you can certainly set up a second controller. I don't on this computer. I just use it for playing online. Once that's done, you hit OK. I would encourage you to lower your dead zone. Dead zone is when you're changing different directions as you're running your player around. Typically, if the dead zone is too high, the number's too high, you will find that your player will kind of get stuck in the mud and it has to reset his speed. So if you can lower it somewhere between 16 and 20, that's the typical recommended, you'll have a lot less frustrating control issues online. So hit OK once you're comfortable with that configuration. After that, you go into Netplay. Hit Connect. You notice I already have a number of things, but this should be blank the first time for you. You would hit Add. In this case, you want to browse on your computer to the directory where your ROM files are stored. Here actually is the location I've got, practically every NES game that there is. But you would find the game in question, and here I can add what's a good 2-player game here. I guess it really doesn't matter. Just find something here, Contra. So I could add Contra to my list, and this would be something that if this file is named exactly the same ROM file for another friend, they could do that. But in this case, I'm actually going to launch Tecmo Super Bowl. Now, before I go try to host a game, I'm actually going to close the emulator, and here's why. After you make your configuration, if you want those settings to be saved and not have to edit every time before going back into Netplay, you need to save it by closing the emulator, and the emulator will in fact then make that change. But we're going to open the emulator back up, and now we're going to go into Netplay. We're going to connect. The TPC tap meter is the one file that you want to get. I don't think this is hosted on techmobowl.org. I think you need to get it from someone in Discord. And this is the version that's essentially the corrected stats on player 2 for conditions, and then also adds the tap meter on the when people get into a grapple, you can see how fast they're tapping. So you can hit launch on the ROM file you want to do, accept the Calera agreement. Here you need to make sure the ports match up. Here's 6996, and then you would type in your outside IP, not the private one. So we talked about going to ipchicken.com. You can copy and paste this right into the front of that. Hit Shift Insert to paste that, and then you would hit New Game. And then after that, all you need to do is wait for give that information to the person that's going to connect to you. And when they do arrive, you'll see a connection status window. Once they connect, you will hit Change Game. I can't do it because there's no one connecting to me right now. But you hit Change Game, select your ROM file again, and then hit the Ready button. They hit Ready on their side, and the game starts. So that's it in a nutshell. If you're having troubles getting the router configured, or you need someone to test connection with, just reach out to me on Facebook. I'll do what I can do for you to get into a game. And once you're set up for that, you should be able to connect with other players in the community that are already doing that. Again, you just need to be on the same page which file you're using. If you're in a league, you have to use the league ROM file, not the one that I just listed, which was the TSP_tap meter. So again, just make sure you're on the same ROM file, exact same name as the other one. So one other thing you can do too is open that ROM file in question locally first and close it out. And then the game has seen it before as well. That's another step that you can take to make sure you're avoiding problems. But anytime you make a configuration change, make sure to close the emulator and then go back out. If you're going to play another online game with someone after you've disconnected, it's also recommended that you close the emulator and then go back in for that second attempt. So that's about all I got today. Any questions, certainly reach out to me, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks a lot.